This is the camera that is recording for YouTube.
Okay.
Okay. And this is the live feed
Okay.
to Facebook. I'm pretty sure there's a better way to do this, but you know, it's how we are. Uh-oh. Can you tell for recording?
Mm-hmm.
Oops, I kicked them on.
I say the red dot doesn't come up and say recording like the old video cameras used to do.
Showing your age, Hickmer. Okay, wait a minute, I think I lost this. Oh, continue. You can hold that if you want to.
Yeah, you can.
Showing your age, Hickmer. Okay, I think maybe we need to mute it here.
Yeah, I know when I do that.
Well, that's not working. Guess we're gonna hear that a few times, huh? I have no idea how to do this. Well, hold it down there, and if it gets too loud, you just have to shut it off, and hope we don't have a lot of comments, but. Good evening, candidates.
Hello.
Hi, Debbie.
As we all know that, you are candidates, Amanda Redmond and Pat Hickner, for District 4 Monroe Township seat on the Carroll Consolidated School Corporation Board of Directors. I'm gonna give each one of you up to 3 minutes to, that's how you do it.
Okay.
I've
We
only
learned
been-
something.
I've only been down that road 15 times.
That's all right.
Let's turn the volume down, Debbie. So up to 3 minutes to introduce yourselves and, say why you're here, what you're doing, what's going on, kind of thing, you know, use your time, okay. Pat, you wanna start?
Sure, be happy to. So I'll start by thanking you, Debbie, and the Comet for hosting us, and the town of Flora for letting us use this space up here. We appreciate that very much. Yeah.
I have to put that in an editorial next week.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good. My name is Pat Hickner. Currently, I'm the incumbent in the Monroe Township seat on the Carroll Consolidated School Corporation Board. I'm also the board president. I have been for the past year. A little bit about myself and my family. We moved here in the year 2000 in July. We enrolled our kids at Carroll Elementary School in August. We have 4 children, and they are all graduates of Carroll High School. All 4 have gone on to college, and Kate is now a teacher at Delphi and married and expecting her first child. And then we have
Is that
two.
public? Well, it is
Yeah,
now.
it is now. Yeah, it's public.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, we have 2 boys who will both be married next summer to their various fiancés, and then a youngest who's about to graduate from Purdue. So we've been through the school corporation from start to finish, 12 years, all 4 kids, and they've all been educated excellently. I've been happily married to my wife for 30 years now, Barb. She's tolerated me for all this time, and so she's a saint. I'm currently employed at Co-Alliance as an agronomist. I work very closely with a lot of our local farming community. A lot of those farm community members are multi-million-dollar businesses. I'm heavily involved with their production, their finances, and their operations, and those are talents and skills that I brought to bear with the school board, and they have served me well these first 4 years. Locally, I've been involved in a lot of activities. Most notably, I was president of the Carroll County Youth Soccer League for 12 years. My wife and I ran that organization. I believe today it is still the largest youth organization in the county. We've added 120 to 140 kids to that program in our time there. I'm involved in my Catholic church in Delphi as a lector and a cantor. My wife and I run a youth group program at the church as well. And we're working with high school age kids. And I'm very passionate about our youth, the youth in this community and the youth abroad. That can be witnessed by my active participation in mentorship at Carroll Schools. I'm an official for youth sports in basketball and soccer. I'm a former coach, and I interact regularly with youth, and I learn something from them every single time. In fact, if you are near me when I'm working a basketball game or a soccer game, you'll find out that I'm asking kids if they have their homework done before they got to the game. And if they didn't have their homework done, they're not allowed to play. So along with that, I've got a couple other things. As president of the board, it's my role to facilitate communication between superintendent and board members. That's the president's job. We're in a very good place right now. We have a very open and honest and forthright and a relationship, and we have a very high level of trust between us. And this allows us to clearly discuss. We disagree as well. We find new options and we build consensus. And that consensus leads us to positive board action, positive action for the corporation, and keeps us moving in the right direction.
Thank you much.
Thank you.
I couldn't figure out why you put the timer over in front of me.
Oh.
So, Amanda,
Okay,
how about you?
well, thank you. I will ditto what Pat said. Thank you, Tom, Flora, and thank you, Deb, and the comment for hosting this. You know that I was excited to do this. So,
I know.
I definitely want to make my voice heard, and I want to share exactly why I want to be a member of the Carroll School Board. So, first and foremost, I am a mom. We're a blended family, so I have 5 children. My husband's 2 are adults. So, one's in Savannah, employed, graduated from Purdue. Ashton is at Purdue, studying hospitality. My 3 are at Carroll High School and junior high and the elementary, so I have 1 at each level currently. So I have a strong pulse on what is happening in the school today. I'm there often. All 3 of the kids are heavily involved in extracurriculars, so I am there for many activities, parent-teacher conferences, daily conversations with teachers, and not to mention the fact that I was employed there for 8 years, so I have a lot of relationships there. You know, I had a lot of messages today from teachers sending me messages about tonight, wishing me luck, and thank you for continuing to support them. And that's my role, and that's what I want to bring. I've been in public education for 17 years. I've taught 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade. I've been a literacy coach. I have been an assistant principal at an elementary school, a principal at an elementary school. I'm currently at the high school level as an administrator, assistant principal at Flint Central High School. So I have many, many years of public education experience, and what I bring to Carroll School Board is an educator. There is not an educator on the school board at Carroll currently, and I think that's very important, especially because what we have now is an ever-changing environment in education constantly. Not only just with COVID, but with all the regulations coming from the DOE. You know, there's been a time this school year that I've actually sent Mr. Thackeray, our superintendent, an email and notified him of something going on in the DOE that he was unaware of. So I keep very current on what's going on. I care deeply about our school corporation. I've invested kind of my life to it as far as dedicating myself. And this opportunity came up. I'm no longer employed here, so I thought I am definitely the best candidate for this job because of everything that I bring to the table. Not only do I have my experience as an educator, but I'm very versed in working with others, being collaborative. I'm very honest and trustworthy, and I think that's essential. My door will always be open. I will answer every email. I'm always there to answer questions. I know that's not been the past practice. Board members have said things that have happened in the recent year. I know that, you know, he is commenting that they have a, you know, a trustful relationship and honest relationship, but I will say that that's false. I will say that that's not the relationship that's happening currently, and I'm hearing that from people that continue to work even in the administration office. So I will wrap up my introduction because I'm sure I'll have plenty of time to address some of those other topics.
Yeah, you will. Yeah, you will.
Yeah.
These are the questions. You know,
Okay.
won't get through them all, let me
Right.
tell you. But we'll do our best because if you know me at all, you know that I think that the people have a right to know,
Absolutely.
and they get to know what's going on. So the first question is for you, Amanda.
Sure.
I can call you Amanda, because we did just meet. And this is from Scott Ayers,
Okay.
from Carrollton Township. How do you expect the public to view someone running for a board that is also on record with a lawsuit against the school?
Well, that's not true. So there is no record of a lawsuit against the school. There was no lawsuit ever filed. I did have representation in my meetings that I had with the school board, and that was for protection of myself, because they were not being open and honest with me, and they were not communicating with me. So I was represented, that I paid for personally, just for my protection. So there is no lawsuit filed.
I think this question comes because in the TV18 interview that you did recently, you mentioned a lawsuit against the school.
No, she asked me if there was a lawsuit.
Okay.
She did. She said, did you further go on and file a lawsuit? I'm not sure what she said. And I said, I'm not even sure how I answered. I mean, the fact is it is no. I've not even had contact with my lawyer since probably February. So that's been totally dropped.
Okay.
And the reason for that is,
Okay.
I care so much about the school corporation, I would not want to do any harm to it. I felt like that was for personal gain if I pursued that, and that's not what I'm about. So I actually had a lot of people that couldn't believe that I wasn't going through with it, and people still ask me about it today. And I did not want to gain personally on that. I'm very happily employed where I'm at now in McClinton. I'm working for an amazing superintendent and school board, where I believe I can really grow professionally. I'm really excited about the opportunity. The experiences I've already had in the last few months have been beyond my expectation. It's refreshing to work for people who are collaborative and open and honest, and we can have positive, constructive conversations and set goals together and work together in a collaborative way. And I'm very blessed to be there. So, you know, I honestly, that's another chapter in my life. I just want to move forward. I want to represent Carroll well. We would be ignorant to say that there's not a lot of doom and gloom going on at Carroll right now. I have a lot of people ask me about that outside of our corporation. What is going on at Carroll? Every week there's some new bomb that's dropped. And I want that to be gone. You know, my kids are Carroll Cougars, and I want to go to games, and I want to be proud, and I want to cheer for our Cougars, and I don't want to be the laughing stock of the Tri-County area. And I think that needs to stop.
Pat, what do you think about this? I don't think you can comment on a lawsuit or a possible lawsuit. But do you think that there are bombs being dropped, that the drama is still going on, that it's detrimental to the school corporation?
My understanding of bombs being dropped is that there have been some changes that have occurred in the last couple of weeks. Rich Ferguson resigning. If that's a bomb, that's a bomb. That's an employee who was chosen to resign his position. We love him very much. He's done fantastic things for the corporation, and we will miss him. Outside of that, normal resignations or teachers or aides or whoever who are leaving, those are normal occurrences.
I'm sorry, I'm just taking a moment because there was a question about that particular bomb. And of course I can't find it there. So that's okay. Pat, can you describe what specific steps you would take as a school board member, continuing, to improve transparency and make the school corporation information more widely available?
Yeah, actually that's something that we've been discussing here at length here for the last several months, especially around the COVID. How do we get communication out to our families in a timely manner? And several ideas have come forward. We're exploring what those ideas look like and how would we manage them. A lot of that would be put on the superintendent in his role to be able to be the gateway for what gets communicated and how often it gets communicated. We're also looking at the platforms which are available to us. You know, we've got I'm not on Facebook, but my age bracket seems to be pretty prevalent and useful on Facebook. And so do we use a Facebook platform? Do we use a Twitter platform that seems to be the 20 and 30s? Do we use an Instagram platform that seems to fit the younger generation that is in school right now, in college and high school?
Mm-hmm.
And so we're investigating those things, and we're putting a plan in place to be able to accomplish a more widespread touch with our communications. Right now, it seems to be the most common thing is to send an email to the corporation families. We don't have a way to know whether those emails are read or not, or whether they're just sitting there in ether or not. So we do have a plan, we're working on that plan, and we'll have it instituted and operational here within the next few months.
I have a comment for that transparency.
Okey doke.
Okay. I will say that in the spring of 2019, most of you probably can recall that you received an email that was a survey that went to community stakeholders, parents, students at the high school, parents, staff, teachers, okay? So it was a big survey. We had a consultant. The school corporation hired a consultant. It was expensive. He created the survey. The survey was sent out, and then all the survey data went to this consultant. And the survey asked questions about the elementary, the junior high, the high school. It asked questions about the current superintendent, and then it asked questions about the current school board. This, once again, was in the spring of 2019, so you could probably go back and check your email for that survey. You haven't heard anything about it since.
Okay.
The consultant did come to a work session. I was there in attendance myself, as well as Pat. And he presented the survey data to us. He presented the fact, the elementary survey data was very positive. Overwhelmingly, people were happy with things that were going on with the elementary. People were okay. They were, the high school, junior high was kind of not bad, not super great. The survey data did not reflect positively for the school board or the superintendent. The goal there was to take that survey data and create goals and action plans for our school corporation to better our school corporation. Our school board and superintendent were not happy with those survey results, and so why you never heard anything about that survey data. That survey data was put to rest, money and time was spent on that, and nothing came out of that because they were not happy with how it was going to portray them. And so rather than
the school board?
the school board and the superintendent, and so rather than taking it as an opportunity to say, hey, let's learn and grow from this, this is feedback from community members, parents, students, staff, teachers, and they dismissed it. And that's where we need to come back. This is what will happen if I'm on the school board. We will have a strategic planning committee. Many school corporations do this. We did it before, prior to Pat being on the school board. The first 4 years that I was employed here, Dave Lambert was on the board, Eric Johnson, Rick Eller, worked closely with those guys. They were great to collaborate with. We had strategic action planning committees. I remember coming in on Saturday mornings, and we made goals together. We made action plans, and out of that came our preschool, came a lot of different things. We talked about curriculum. Part of that was our one-to-one technology. Dr. Ligoni was our superintendent at the time. And that was great, and that's what school corporations do. They take survey data, they send it out, they get input from all their stakeholders, they take that information, they create goals, and then they create action plans to attain those goals.
Okay.
We haven't done that here in the last 4 years.
Chad, do you want to respond to that?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Actually, some of what she said is just wrong because she's not involved in the school corporation. That survey by Dr. Balch, who's out of Indiana State, that we paid good money for, is still used today. We use it internally, and that's one
Where
of
are
the
those
reasons.
survey results posted?
No, it's fine. If she wants to talk over me, go ahead.
No.
That's quite all right.
That's
Yeah.
not what we're gonna do here.
No, it's fine.
No, it's
Yeah.
not.
So those survey results are still being used.
Okay.
They've been parsed, they've been separated, they've been categorized. That's one of the reasons why this communication issue has come up because of the survey, because that was one of the leading indicators in the survey of a deficiency within the school corporation. Not enough communication. And we're dealing with that right now. We've been dealing with it as we could with COVID, put a big clamp down on what we could and couldn't do on a regular basis. And so, that survey is still very active within the school board and within the administration team.
And to ask Amanda's question, where would someone locate the results of the survey or whatever? I mean, is there anything written about what you're doing, how you're doing it, how you're addressing it, how you're changing?
Just internally, I mean, we don't have any concrete plans with,
How is that
with anywhere we're
transparent?
doing. Yeah.
And, is that a
The transparency will be when we have a plan in place and we can execute the plan.
That
It'll be
was done in the
communicated.
spring of 2019.
Yeah,
We are
which-
moving into 2021, there's still no plan.
Yeah, you're exactly right, yeah, but it's still being worked.
Okay. A question for I'm trying to figure out what's the best list. For Amanda, again, from Wyndham Traxler Carter. That's the first time I got her name right, by the way.
I think she was my TC.
I think it's just Mrs. TC.
Is it, is
Yeah.
it? Well, you know,
Yeah.
I don't get that covering the Delphi board, yeah. As a former teacher and parent, but still a patron of Carroll Schools, I know that it is taken for granted that administrators lie, sometimes for good, often for evil. But when caught, how should they deal with their actions?
Well, I've actually been lied to myself several times while working at Carroll. I guess having tough conversations is what I would say to that. My door's always open, so when someone has a question about something and they aren't sure of something that happened, I want to answer those questions. Hey, I heard this happen, can you please tell me more about that? I'm always happy to have those conversations. And that's how I would be as a school board member. My door would be open, my emails would, like I said, would always be responded to, phone calls would be responded to. I would be at several events, because that's where I'm at a lot of the time, available to answer questions, and that's what I'm used to, because that's what I did, as a principal here. I was always answering questions about what's going on in school. I had great communication and relationships with staff and parents, and I think that's been obvious over the last year. So I guess, how do you handle when you feel like you've been lied to? That's tough. I've been there many times. Without getting too personal and nasty, I'll just kind of leave it at that. It's tough, and what you have to do is you have to have a tough conversation, which I'm good at. I've had a lot of tough conversations in my years. I have to have tough conversations with parents, with teachers. Sometimes you have to have a conversation with somebody that's hard. You might have to talk to somebody about their job performance, and that might be a tough conversation. You might have to talk to a teacher about a parent complaint that they don't want to hear about, and I don't want to tell them, but it's the only right thing to do.
As a school board member, if someone believes that you haven't been truthful, how would you deal with that? If they approached you with
So
that.
I'm very face to face, or pick up the phone and give me a call. I'm happy to have a conversation. Like I said, you feel like I haven't been truthful, come to me, let's talk it out, and let's talk about it. There's always kind of two sides to every story. I think what we get lost in sometimes is that rumor mill that happens, and people love to speculate on the rumor mill. And it kind of gets going, and when people see something happening and they don't have all the information, a lot of times people kind of add in their own details so that they have something to talk about. We're adults, we all know that happens. We learn about it in middle school, elementary sometimes. And that's and you have to learn how to deal with that. So I know when somebody brings something to me, that's why I always say, don't bring something to me unless you want me to take it to the person and I'll mediate the conversation, because I only think that's fair. If I were, working with you, Deb, let's say, and someone came to me and said, well, Deb said this, and Deb did this, and she did that, and it was all negative. I said, well, what we need to do? We need to go talk to Deb about that. I'm sure Deb can speak for herself and tell us what really happened.
I probably can,
So I think that's my philosophy in life. That's how I go through life. And that's how I resolve conflict.
Pat,
Yeah,
response?
a couple of different things to talk about here. So, I don't deal with rumors. I go straight to the source. If somebody's saying something about me or about anybody that I know, I go to the source and I ask them plain and simple. In fact, your husband Paul and I have had several of those conversations about various aspects of things that we've been involved with. Heart-to-heart conversations. When Dave and Ryan and myself first ran for the board 4 years ago, we had a conversation before the election, and we told each other, we ensured each other, that we would be big boys, that we would have adult conversations and make hard adult decisions. In this 4 years on this board, we've had to do that. And we've done that. We've been fair with each other, we've been honest with each other, we've been open. All anybody has to do is ask. Phone calls, emails, in person, anytime they ask, we're there to answer. And we answer openly, honestly, and forthrightly. And anybody who can point me in a different direction on where I've done that, I'd like to know.
So you've responded to every email that you received between the months of November and February?
No, because most of those were about the ongoing actions that we were taking, and we're not allowed to comment about those.
Okay, so what you said then was false.
No, if we can talk about it, then we talked about it.
You didn't
But we
talk to-
can't talk
you didn't
about
to
those
me about
personnel
it. You
things.
didn't talk to me about it.
Talk to you about what?
What are you talking about that you couldn't talk about?
About all the emails that came through
Yeah.
after
So-
the action that we took in November or December.
You did not
Yeah.
ever talk to
Right-
me about those
right
actions,
then.
so you're not
That's not the
transparent.
board's role to talk to you about it. That's Mr. Thackeray's
But
role,
that
and
was
he did his
your
job.
recommendation.
Yes, Mr. Thackeray carried it through, like he was supposed to, and we followed all the state guidelines and
Right.
statutes. Everything went fine. Everything went the way it was supposed to go.
And it's back to me,
Yes,
okay.
ma'am.
I'm just not gonna, we're not gonna get anywhere with that, so.
Okay. I gotta find my hat here. And I will,
That's fine.
I absolutely will, because I wrote some. Yeah. What is the single most important thing you've learned about serving as a school board member?
Thick skin.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've always been an honest person, and I've always had the ability to speak to people openly and forthrightly, and I've used that to my advantage. The width of knowledge that I've gained about what a school board member does and what the school board does has widened significantly from when I first began. And now, at this point, the depth is starting to grow. Several things that I've been passionate about with the finances and the educational side and students, I've gotten deep into, and I have a fairly good understanding of what's happening in our schools right now. That needs to continue. There's more depth there, but the width and the breadth of what the school corporation does and what the school board's role is, I feel like I've gotten a pretty good handle on how that works and what my role is. And I've stayed within those bounds. And so probably the one thing that I've learned the hardest or learned the most about is how deep and how complicated the school finance is, the school budget.
I have a question about that. In a Facebook post that Barb Pickner posted a couple days ago, she talked about accomplishments during Pat's term. And this is
Are
on.
we asking each other
Yeah,
questions?
no.
Well, no,
I'm the one
it
asking
has to do with
questions.
something he's learned as a school board
Well,
member.
why don't you just sum it up and
Okay.
say,
Okay,
you know,
yeah, he stated, because I'm concerned about this as a parent, even if I don't win. He stated that he brought special education into the school, and that's on her post as a list of accomplishments.
okay, Pat didn't make the post.
But it has his name and his picture on it of his accomplishments, that he brought special education into the school.
And your, wait, so.
I guess I'm wondering,
Do you think that's
How
not
did
true? Is that what you're saying?
absolutely, it's not true. Special education has always been in the school. Do you know what FAPE is?
But who?
FAPE?
FAPE?
Yes.
No.
Free and appropriate public education. It's been around since the 1960s. It's a law. Article 7, it's a special education law. So my point is, your accomplishments are not even true or accurate because you didn't bring special education into the school.
That's interesting, because at one point we were participating with LaJesse for special ed services.
Right.
We're not part of LaJesse anymore. We're
Correct.
offering all of those services within our own school corporation right now. That's bringing special ed into our corporation. that happened in the 4 years in which I've been on the board. How is that not true?
Okay, we're moving on. We're moving on.
Certain services have been offered in Carroll schools for special education,
Special
no
education
doubt.
has always been.
But we
in all
pulled the
public
whole
schools.
thing in and we're funding it by ourselves now. We're not part of any co-ops.
Correct, because the co-op dissolved.
Yeah.
So we had no other choice
Right.
but to go on our own, because our superintendent and our school board were unable to come to any agreement with any neighboring schools or neighboring co-ops to work with them. So at the last minute, we had to scramble to create our own program.
There was no
And
scramble.
as
It
a
was
matter of
planned.
fact, right now, yes, there was, I lived through it. And as a matter of fact, right now, we are spending more money on special education dollars than that's coming in. So we're spending more money, so it's not being done efficiently. We should be, I know in the last session of the debate, we talked a lot about how can we work together with other school corporations, and I think that's really important, not only with CTE and some of the high school programs, but with special education. We should be working with another school corporation and saving dollars rather than trying to do everything ourselves. We're a small school corporation, we don't have the capacity to spend it all on special education ourselves. We should be working with other school corporations, but we couldn't quite seem to get anyone else to agree with us.
Which just goes to show that you don't understand where we are in special education within the school
I
corporation.
absolutely do.
We're funded and we don't lose money on our special education fund right now. We're funded
You should
fully
probably read the
with.
financial reports.
I think you need to let him finish.
No, it's fine, it's fine.
Well, and that kind of brings me to a question that isn't written, but I'm wondering, Amanda, if you get on the school board and your other two team members do not, how are you going to get along with the rest of the school board members?
I actually get along great with everyone I work with.
You're not getting along great with Pat. You're showing him disrespect, and
Well, he's shown me a lot of disrespect in the past.
you're kind of showing me disrespect by not letting me finish my thought.
No, I apologize. for that.
Okay, but how is that gonna manifest on the school board? You know, I cover the Delphi School Corporation. And so I'm not unaware of things that people don't agree about. You know, if you read the headlines today, you know, something got passed in a split vote and, you know, that kind of thing.
Sure.
Tell me how your behavior, would you continue this behavior of being argumentative as you've been tonight?
I don't think I'm being argumentative. I think that I'm speaking the truth, and I'm trying to make some points, and we're on a limited time schedule, and I've not really had the opportunity to make some of these points before, and I think they're important. I think it's what the people wanna hear. They wanna hear things about, you know, how are we spending our money? Is our school corporation being transparent? And these are things that need to be talked about. And these are things that people need to know so they know how to vote on November 3rd or before when they vote early. So, I mean, I guess people that have worked with me and people that work with me now, they know that, do I fight for what's right sometimes? Absolutely, if that's what needs to be done. And I don't do it in a disrespectful way, but you have to make sure that your voice is heard, and I'm not a yes man. And I think that sometimes we have too many people on the school board that are yes mans, that just kind of sit there and nod their head. But we really need to look at some things that are going on and not act like everything's just hunky-dory, because it's not. We need to address some issues. You know, our enrollment is down about 150 from 2 years ago. That's close to $900,000. Why are our students leaving?
So if, did you want to say anything to that, Pat? Did you want to make?
No,
a
we
comment?
go on whatever you have now.
I didn't think, yeah. Have you been, Pat, have you been to school board training?
Yes.
How many times?
No, it's probably annually,
Yeah.
go for a refresher. Yeah.
That's kind of what I thought. I didn't remember.
They usually serve us a nice steak dinner at the Indian Trail, or at the what used
The
to be
trails.
the trails, yeah. I don't know if it's still the trails or not.
Okay. And, Amanda, would you be attending
Oh, absolutely.
training?
I'm a lifelong learner. I mean, I'm always wanting to learn. I mean, that's, you know, part of why I'm very excited. I know I don't know everything that I need to know to be on the school board. I'm a sucker for training and learning. I mean, I'm an educator, so I absolutely will eat that up, and I can't wait to learn more, as we move forward, so.
And, somebody just asked a question, Sean Wiles, and it is also on my question list. And I'll direct this to Pat
Sure.
first. what are the things that you would want to improve in the school corporation? You know, I believe that your enrollment is declining at this point.
Yep.
And so what are some of those things that you would want to address as a
Sure.
incumbent?
Yeah.
Or newly elected again?
Yeah.
Which is oldly elected, I guess.
Internally, we're working on upgrading curriculum. Curriculum hadn't been updated in the 4 years leading up to me, and I think for 4 years previous to that, because we had gone to one-to-one devices. It was thought at the time that one-to-one devices would allow for curriculum to be brought in through internet services or whatever. And we basically figured out that that wasn't happening, and so we went to this curriculum upgrade. So looking forward, there are 2 more curriculum upgrades that are coming up that will happen in this next 4-year term. Social studies and science are those 2, and we need to look at those hard because they'll be 8 or 10 years old.
What does that mean, upgrade?
So that means that the curriculum changes on a regular basis. It gets updated and upgraded on a regular basis.
Does
and
that mean
there's-
the information changes, or how it's presented is changed?
Yeah, quite frankly, that's school level, and that's not what a board member would do. We would know about it as we're going through the process because we sit on committees to understand those things. But the way that I understand it is there is a statewide rotation on curriculum updates. And it's on a 2-year basis, and it's over, I think, a 12-year period where you go through 6 different curriculums. That got skipped by school corporation for at least 8 years before I got on the board. And so we recognized that we needed to upgrade that. So we got math and ELA done in these last 4 years. We upgraded our one-to-one devices as well, so we can handle those curriculum changes. And now we're looking at these next 2. Another internal piece that needs to happen that we were just updated on last night at our board meeting is the vertical integration of our curriculum. Roy Hufford, who's the principal at the elementary school, brought in last night and showed us how he will integrate from kindergarten through 3rd grade, and then 3rd to 4th, and 4th to 5th, and 5th to 6th, and then working with Shay at the high school and integrating those curriculums into the high school. So now as our students process through the school corporation, they will move through and they will be checked against where they should be as they advance. Vertical integration is the term that was used, and it stuck in my brain, I don't know why, but yeah. So now our curriculum will align from top to bottom, from K to 12. Outside of that, we've got a few outside projects that need to occur. We've got a roof problem on the high school that needs to happen. We've got some expenditures that we're gonna have there. So on top of all of that, looking at what COVID has done to the state budget, there's gonna be some very serious discussions and some very serious decisions that need to be made. That someone with proven leadership and understanding of the school budget needs to be there to make.
Amanda, what do you think about this?
Absolutely. I mean, I agree with Pat, the curriculum needs of the building. I think that's essential and that's important. I mean, as a school, I think curriculum dollars should be allocated for every school year, without question. So I've always believed that. I've always fought for that. We need to continue to do so. Absolutely. Vertical articulation is imperative. You know, that's been in place for a while with curriculum mapping that our teachers have worked really hard on. So I think that that's good to hear that that's going to continue, because that is important to align that curriculum K-12. So was the original question, what are some things we need to work on?
Yes.
Yeah. So enrollment, of course, is a huge concern of mine. You know, we're losing lots of students.
How would you fix it?
Well, I think that's part of that survey I mentioned earlier and having that strategic planning committee. And we need to reach out to our stakeholders and we really need to find out why are they leaving. I know a lot of them are leaving to homeschool. A lot of them are leaving to go to different schools. We have a bus from Delphi that comes and takes a busload of kids to Delphi. That's disheartening. I feel like, we offer some great programs at Carroll and we want to be proud of those and be able to retain those students. So, a couple of concerns I have as a parent is I do know we currently don't have an 8th grade math teacher. My daughter's in 8th grade and she doesn't have a math teacher and she hasn't had one all year.
We hired one last night.
Well, that's great to hear because my daughter's been learning 8th grade math online with a substitute and you can imagine how difficult that is as she's preparing for high school math. So I think that goes back to staffing. We started the school year without a 7th grade social studies teacher. And I've had conversations with Mr. Bennell about staffing, because obviously I had a lot of concerns about my daughter being in 8th grade without a math teacher, for 9 weeks. So that's a lot. Not to mention they lost, that cohort of kids lost 9 weeks of school basically at the end of last year. So that's disheartening to hear, and I'm concerned about what that means. So I think staffing concerns might be some of the reasons that we have some kiddos leaving. So
Do you think the board, excuse me for interrupting, but
yeah, that's okay.
I'm trying to get a little clarity.
Sure.
Do you think that the board, and that's not a criticism, do you think that the board is dragging its feet on hiring?
Well, like I said, I did have some
Or-
conversations with the high school principal, and I know that he had candidates lined up, and for whatever reason, things just weren't jiving. That, I think pay was an issue. I think not willing to meet with some of the needs of the staffing that we currently have was an issue. And that's kind of where we need to think about the morale of our staff, and how are we taking care of our people? Are we valuing them? I can think back to, there was a public hearing prior to collective bargaining with the teachers. And you probably remember that meeting, and the teachers had the opportunity to speak out, and it was very heartfelt. I was there, and I listened to teachers like Kathy Ayers and Linda Blocker that have basically dedicated their life to teaching here at Carroll. And they talked about how they just want to be compensated fairly. And we all know teachers are underpaid. We know that. I understand how the funding sources work, and we only have what we can work with. But I think a lot of that, what you can't make up for in money, you can make up for in how we value our people and how they're treated and how they're talked to. And I know that the teachers that night did not feel like their voices were heard. I know that in a work session after that meeting, I brought it up and I said, are we going to talk about the elephant in the room and talk about what our teachers brought to us tonight? And the board scoffed at it, and just wanted to go onto their own agenda. So I even think there was some mocking that happened, and that was really disheartening to hear, because those teachers were putting their hearts out on the line in what they do every day, and what they deal with on a day-to-day basis. And I've been in a school my whole life, either as a student or as a job. I'm in a school every day. I know what our teachers do on a day-to-day basis, every day, all day. I know what they do at home, and at the emails they receive, the phone calls that they get, and the parent meetings that they have, and it's tough.
Okay.
And I think our teachers need to be valued. I tried to wrap it up for you. So.
I know, I'm trying to. And this goes to you first, Amanda. And it looks like there are 3 candidates, you and 2 others, running as a team. And
We're working together, yes.
And so, what happens if you 3 are elected to the board? Can we expect that, and this is a Scott Ayers question with a little bit of Debbie Lowe added into it, then would we expect that how one votes, do you all vote?
I would say no. I mean, I can't see into the future on all things, but
Is that the plan though, to stick together?
no, we haven't actually said that. What we want to do is we want to really see the culture change. Like I mentioned before, we want Carroll to be a place that people want to bring their children and be proud and say, look at that school, we need to move into that district. That's what I want.
To go along with that, the comment is all about the open door law and transparency,
Sure,
and everybody
totally.
has a right to know,
Yeah.
and I'm always looking at, everybody's executive sessions, really, those kind
Absolutely,
of
right,
things.
there's a lot of them, right?
Yeah, well, it's just, Delphi does the same thing, I gotta tell you, it's pretty common. But for the 3 of you who seem to be collaborators, working
Which I think
together,
is a great thing.
and if you all were elected, how would you ensure to the community that you're not violating the open door law?
Sure. Well, I guess a great answer to that question would be transparency, and just, I'm all about, what is the phrase, like, it's action, not speech, right? Like, you can't just say it, you have to show it, you have to do it. So I think as we go along, when there are things brought up and everything will have been discussed and open, and there won't be any surprises.
But what if the three of you, do you know what a meeting is?
Sure, if it's three or more are together and they're talking about school business, then that's
Mhm.
considered a meeting, yeah,
Yeah, okay.
yeah.
So what happens when you meet at a ball game and you start talking about school things?
Well, I think we couldn't do that, number one, I mean, we just
Not
couldn't-
legally.
right, yeah, we just couldn't do that, and we wouldn't, I mean, all you have is our word, just like, you know, when I walk in the Spirit, I see 3, sometimes 4 board members in the Spirit at the booths. So I see that often, and the conversation often gets quiet when I come in, so I'm wondering what they're talking about.
Well, you
But-
know, that happens to me all the time.
Sure.
And I think they're talking about
Yeah,
that,
so I mean, I
Cubs
think we
game.
can speculate on both sides of that, I
Okay.
think that happens no matter what.
Mhm.
It's not okay and it won't happen with me, I mean, we know the laws, we've actually talked about that. We've talked about how, you know, we have to make sure we don't do that. And the way we do that is we prove it by, no surprises come up, there aren't any secret agendas, there aren't anything that comes up out of the blue, like
Mhm.
positions being added and, you know, spending and software being purchased, it's $10,000 a year that hasn't been discussed openly. So one of our big things, if you look at our common items that we agree on, would be transparency and having more discussion about how we're spending money, positions that are added or cut. The elementary is down 6 classroom teachers in the last 4 years.
Mhm.
And those are decisions that are made, even when I was the building principal, I didn't know it was gonna happen, it was just kinda, I was just kinda told,
Pat,
so.
do you wanna respond to any of that?
Yeah, a little bit of that. So, transparency is in place, and it has been in place for a long, long time.
Uh-huh.
All anybody has to do is reach out to a board member, reach out to Mr. Thackeray, go into the school corporation office and ask for financial documents. They're all there, it's all public record, and it's available. All anybody has to do is go ask for it if they want it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the fact of the matter. So, what she's referring to in this $10,000 software that's not talked about publicly is called Fox, I can't remember the name of it because I got it confused with the Pulp Fiction movie. But it is used on a regular basis. Camden uses it all the time, and it's presented to us in the spreadsheets and the budget that, the spending allocations that we have and the budgets that we look at every single month. It's used every single month.
Mm-hmm.
What needs to be talked about it on a public basis, I don't know. If someone wants to ask about it, we'll talk about it. But it's something that's used internally, it's not hidden from anybody, it's available in there, and Camden probably would be happy to show somebody what it's capable of doing.
Okay. Believe it or not, you all have been here 45 minutes.
Time flies when you're having fun, Debbie.
Well, you know, it's been lively. I think it's been lively. Pat, what have been 3 biggest challenges you faced in the past 4 years? And if you had anything to do over, what would you do?
That's an interesting question. Quite frankly, one of the biggest challenges that we had was the action that we took with our elementary principal. That was a very heartfelt, difficult process for us to get through as a board. I think we did it like men. We talked about what we needed to talk about, what we could talk about, and we made a good decision in the end. 3 things. Outside of that, funding issues and trying to make sure that we keep a good balance sheet in place, and that we're not spending foolishly. Camden's new role as operations director has really helped us in that position, with containing spending on things that were not controlled before. Outside of that, probably the biggest issue that we have is within our 10-year plan that we've put together. We have a significant drainage issue, and this corporation has known about it for a long, long time. It's gonna be an expensive fix, and we're right now trying to figure out exactly how do we go about doing that and how do we fund it. There may be a geo bond that we float for it, we just haven't decided yet, but in the next 4 years, that's something that will have to be dealt with. And we can go back to the pending budget that we're looking at, that we're just not sure what it's gonna look like yet.
Amanda, what do you think your 3 biggest challenges would be if you were elected to the board?
Biggest challenges would be, I guess, you know, just the challenge of getting Carol back on track. to being, you know, a school that attracts families, that we have a lot of work to do, a lot of work to do. So we have to reestablish our reputation. We need to realign our goals. So that I see being a lot of work. That's probably the 3-in-1 right there. Just getting Carroll Schools where it needs to be. It's full of outstanding educators, outstanding families, that I'm very proud to be a part of. And I just want to see us be the best that we can be. I want to see our enrollment increase. I think that's going to be another challenge. You know, I'm a goal person. I don't talk in ambiguities and you know, overarching themes. I'm like, here's a goal. We need to increase our enrollment. We need to increase it by this much each year. And we need to have an action plan on how we're going to get there. Anybody that knows me knows that's how I work. It's just how I think that's how you get things done. You can sit around and talk about a lot of things, right? You can talk about a lot of things all day long. But you have to have an action plan. You have to have goals. And that has to be, it's just like when you say you want to, you know, do something, you're going to go to school. You need to be held accountable. You need to put those goals out there. They need to be visible for the public. People need to know what our goals are, and we're going to work on them together and collaborate, and everyone's thoughts are valued. I want to hear how people think they can contribute to those goals, and what's their role, and how can we use that. You know, if you have somebody from an outside network, such as Ivy Tech, come and talk to, you know, our school corporation and want to partner together, I think we need to make time for that. We need to look at how that can better our school corporation. So just examples like that. Like, I think we need to be forthright in our goals, be very, very, very aggressive in achieving our goals, and be transparent with what the goals are and how we're going to work together to get there.
Okay, let's have a wrap up. I don't know if you have any reference.
Oh, I'd be happy to, yeah. I'll start by thanking you again, Debbie, and the Comet, and the town of Flora for allowing this medium to happen. I've really appreciated this time and the ability to sit here and discuss with Amanda and you and how all these things are happening. I have a couple of different things that I want to point to in my closing remarks. And first, I want to point out it's imperative to the voters of the Carroll Consolidated School Corporation that they have 5 independent, functioning, thinking board members, not one group of 3 and then 2 individuals. It's imperative. We have to think about that. That should be the desire of this community, to have independent representation for their individual township. A block of 3 that acts like one turns a board of 5 into a board of 3. That's not what this community needs. Each voter needs to know this, and they need to ask themselves if that's what they want, a block of 3 or 5 independent board members. Second, I'm a member of this board, and I'm in good standing with the corporation. We're working together on levels that we have never worked with in the past that are very high. We are pointed in the right direction. Our culture has changed. It is not changing, it has changed. It is for the better. The terms that I hear are a breath of fresh air. And it's nice to have coaching in the schools and a direction that everybody can get on to. I've built relationships with many of the people who are in our school corporation and the staff, and I'll continue to work and develop those relationships. And I'll continue to uphold my high moral and ethical standards while I serve on for this entire school community, not just for Monroe Township, but for the entire school community. There's one more thing here that I need to find real quick to point out. I apologize that I didn't have this organized. That would be missed. In the school board training that we went to the first year that we were on, Dr. Michael Adamson, who is president or the executive director of the United School Boards Association, he had this little blurb in there that I thought was really kind of fitting. To quote it, this is not me, I'm quoting Dr. Michael Adamson in his training. School boards play a critical role in student achievement by setting the expectations and providing the atmosphere where student achievement initiatives occur. school boards are accountable for everything, yet responsible for nothing. And I think tonight, the people who are watching this can clearly see two different visions of Carroll Consolidated School Corporation. My vision of the school corporation and as a board member is high-arching on purpose. It looks at the entire school corporation, not a cohort like she talked about, a single cohort. We're concerned about all 12 cohorts in the school and the 9 weeks that they lost, and maybe even 12 weeks now with the first 3 weeks of the school corporation still under COVID restrictions. So the school board's role, my role as a school board member, is to manage and oversee the entire corporation. I think that's a clear difference between the two of us. One more thing here. And that'd be a repeat if I said that again. So I'll finish with this. My name is Pat Hickner, and I've been for 4 years the incumbent on the Monroe Township seat.